And we are with Missy McCall and Liz Williamson. Missy is the co-founder of Blue Heart International. Liz is a victims advocate, and your organization helps victims of human trafficking. Tell us a little about what you do and what you do to help these people.
Yeah, so our organization, we go out on the streets and we minister to the girls and women on the street about every quarter during the year. But we also have housing program where we house victims of of sex trafficking. I'm sorry, and then we also provide counseling and different opportunities for them to get on their feet. And then as well as we spread awareness about sex trafficking and what does that look like in our community, not only in our community, but how kids get coerced into sex trafficking.
So, and you brought up a point, something I've been thinking about. It's not necessarily just kids who are young or underage, is it?
No, definitely not. But the average age that they start to be coerced into sex trafficking is between 12 to 16 years old.
Okay, so when you say coerced, what kind of methods do these bad actors use to essentially trick these girls into going along with what they want them to do?
Well, I think the biggest misconception that people think is that all pimps / traffickers are male, when actually they're female. And some of them are in schools that the children go to. Some of them are online, and they essentially just become friends with another girl and say, hey, don't be doing that with your boyfriend. You can be getting paid. And so it's a slow way of being coerced into trafficking, slow way of selling their body for sex. And then pretty soon, they're like, hey, you need to go out on the street and do this. And so they'll take their friend and they'll go out on the street and then they'll start making money, and then pretty soon they'll get beat up, and then they realize they needed a pimp or a John to help them out.
Mm-hmm. And then I think the other way that many girls get coerced into this is this desperate need to feel validated and beautiful. And what girl doesn't want to hear that? Yeah. So a trafficker, whether male or female, takes advantage of a vulnerability that all women feel, that they all want to be validated. And the minute you get that validation that your body is what you're worth, it's a really, really hard thing to come back from. Because for 1 minute you feel beautiful, and for 1 minute you have someone's attention. Because what all these girls are looking for is someone to cherish them. Our girls at our house just happen to not have the fairy tale that we want for every girl.
So, and you've already brought up so many other questions that I want to ask you. How much of it for the victims becomes about the money? Because you say that's how they're coerced into it. Is that, how much of that continues to be appealing even after they're deep into this trafficking?
Well, I think the reality for any girl is that for a lot of them, economic issues are a very real pressure. It's hard to make rent. It's hard to have groceries. So you have that very real need that they think that they could meet. And then the relationship that develops with the trafficker that, oh, he gives me a place to stay, or she gives me a place to stay. I can get food. I can get clothes. So it all gets very twisted in a sense. But the reality for any girl is that you don't keep the money. What you earn because of what you ask your body to do in those situations, you burn through it because it's so shame-filled that even if a girl could say, I made this amount of money in this period of time, you don't even want to keep it to maintain a better lifestyle for yourself, because literally when you have to think about what you did to get to that point, minimum wage is better. Having something tangible to show for it. And so that's what we always try to be able to give the girls later on when they enter a housing program or they get counseling, is that a normal life, though it looks less fancy than the fast life, you have something to show for it. You have something that you can talk about. You have a tangible reality of my work and my effort got me this, and this is where I am now, in comparison to I spent 2 hours with a client and the only thing she did was line her trafficker's pocket.
And something else I keep thinking about, because I think a lot of us assume it's always girls. Is it always girls?
I think in Sacramento, the majority of the people that we see are women. If you go to like San Francisco or down to LA, you'll see more and more men and boys that are being sold for sex. But mainly in Sacramento, I would say it's a higher percentage than it is male.
And I understand Sacramento ranks pretty high in terms of the amount of trafficking. Where do we sit?
Yeah, so what I like to tell people about that is because of our task force that and the amount of rescues that they do, that we actually rank higher. I wouldn't say that we're the, we're maybe in maybe the top 10, but we're actually not that high as the media portrays us to be. I mean, sex trafficking is everywhere. You go to Washington, to the smallest town, trafficking is happening. It's happening up and down the 80 corridor. So I hate to say that it's in one spot, because people always think they're safe, and they're really not. Like, their child is not safe. Any part of the United States, they can be coerced into trafficking.
Okay, now once these girls are brought into this black market system,
Yeah.
are there places where they tend to congregate? Because I think we all think of places like North Watt Avenue or Del Paso Heights, where this sort of activity is more common.
Yeah, so I would say that street trafficking is common in Sacramento, where there's 5 local hotspots where we know girls will be walking up and down being sold for sex, but also they're being sold online. So a lot of it is hidden underground where you can't even see it. And where the nights that we go out, we also make phone calls to the ladies that are being sold online and say, hey, do you want to, we have a purse for you, we have a meal for you, like, do you want to come and just, maybe get gift certificates and talk with us. And that's really the way we help the women get off the websites, and because those women will never be able to see on the streets.
How well does that work?
It works really well, actually. We actually had 3 girls back in September, and they were all being sold online, and they just said, like, we have to get out. Like, we just ran from our trafficker. We need a way out. We didn't know what to do, so we all came together, and we've just kind of been selling ourselves together to survive, and they've just been paying for their hotel and motel to just be able to live. And the girl just got her jaw broken open 2 weeks prior because of John that beat her really, really bad. And she's just like, I want to be done, but I don't know how. And so we're kind of like that light for them, that's saying, this is your opportunity to get out. And it's just by that one phone call of us saying, hey, we have another option for you, or out on the street saying, hey, we have another option for you. And so when they see us out and they're tired and they just want to stop running, it's like they see us and they're like, we're done.
How often are these girls from this area originally? Because it feels like they sort of move them around to areas where they're unfamiliar, and that's part of the maintaining of control.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, maybe Liz, you can answer this better than I can, but some of the ladies I see, they're from Fairfield, Oakland, Washington. Some of them are from Sacramento, but like you said, they do move around. The girls that I do see on the street are moving, though. Yeah.
I think it's a definite reality that it's like a chessboard. You are in one area at one time, and then the strategy changes and you have to move to another area. The girls that I've worked with in the last few years, honestly, most of them tend to be from California, different parts. I've met many girls in Sacramento. They always laugh that I'm not from Sacramento. That always trips them out. But, we have girls who've been trafficked that end up in New York and Miami, and they're originally from here. So I think travel is just a huge piece of it, which is why community engagement and awareness is so important, because what happens to the girl in Sacramento if she's in New York?
Yeah.
Who looks out for her?
Yeah, and that makes me wonder, and you probably know better than I, how much of this is part of a larger organized crime network?
Yeah, there are huge organizations. I mean, there's the Russian mafia that's involved. There's gangs that are involved. I mean, gangs are on a rise of being involved, because when you take drugs, and you get caught with a drug, the police officers is going to say, yes, you had a drug, you're going to jail. You get caught with a girl in the car, they can't identify that she's a sex trafficking victim. Not only that, they can't identify that you're actually selling her unless they see the transaction happening. So it's so much harder. And plus, drugs you have to get over and over again. A girl, you can just get once and sell her over and over and over and over again. And unlike a drug.
And I think the other reality when it comes to the organized crime part, most of us in society want to put our head in the sand and not look at how dark and evil our world can actually be. So I think that there will always be people in positions of power that use it for ill-gotten gain. That until we really take an honest look at the fact that it's wrong to sell another human being, I don't know that we'll be able to dismantle the organized hidden black market part of it, because you've got to be willing to say enough is enough and a human being shouldn't be sold.
Yeah, and on top of that too, I think that the social media part of the aspect of trafficking is so big. You have movies and celebrities that basically dress like the girls that we see on the street. And so for me, sometimes I can't recognize the difference between a celebrity on the red carpet and a girl that I see on the street. The music videos that we listen to, they all talk about trafficking, and kids sing these songs about trap houses and about, I'll sell my girl tonight, get my bro out tomorrow, and these kids are listening to these songs and about being a pimp and all this stuff that it's almost like a whole social media, and celebrities need to change, and artists need to rise up and say, we're done making music about degrading women.
One of the tricks that you mentioned already is how to tell.
Yeah.
How can we tell? Like, I was reading the article on your website about spotting them in airports, but airports aren't the only place. I mean, what if I'm walking down the street, in San Francisco or in downtown Sacramento, or, not that I'm out walking around on North Watt Avenue, but I could be out there shopping or at a restaurant or something. I go out there sometimes. How can somebody like me spot these victims and know, hey, that's a victim?
I think that part of it is the willingness to be aware. Until you are willing to have your eyes open, I think that we miss a lot of things because people are afraid to engage. They're afraid because they think they're responsible for the outcome. None of us are responsible for the outcome. What we have to do is the right thing at the right time. For my story personally, I did not make eye contact. I wouldn't talk. I kept my eyes very low where I would stare at the carpet. I wouldn't make eye contact with you, particularly because you're a man. Don't mean that harshly. It just tends to be what it is. There could be unexplained bruises, signs of malnutrition. I was very thin, didn't eat a lot. There could be signs of, I know this is going to sound terrible. There could be a sign that she has no personality except for the people that are around her, where it's so beaten out of her that literally she'll be yes sir and no sir and do whatever that other person asks. She may not have her identification on her. She may not be able to, if she does engage in a conversation with you, tell you where she is or common landmarks, because she moves around all the time. Also, I think the other thing that's super important for awareness is the reality of PTSD and being hyper focused on everything around me, or hyper aroused of I'm constantly on guard and I feel like something else is going to happen. If you are able to talk with a girl and she's away from her trafficker, there may be a trust issue. It may be hard to set up a rapport where sometimes the kindest thing you can do is to offer to get her a meal or a hot cup of coffee and establish that there's trust and that you're not out there to hurt her. The much important thing to do, most important thing, would be to be able to establish that there are good people that are looking out for her that don't want something in return. Because sometimes we could think that, oh, I'm being kind, I want to help her. She's thinking, what do I need to do because you offered me that cup of coffee? And in reality, what we're trying to do is establish again that we love her and we want her safe and we don't want to do anything to harm her. And I think to get a better mindset of what to look for with a trafficking victim, think about when we first started talking about domestic violence. Think about the level of mental anguish and bondage that a woman would have to go through before she would ever leave her husband. If we can get that mindset, it may be easier to see in the grocery store when you see the girl that won't meet your eye, that's looking down at her feet, also inappropriately dressed for the seasons, or and not just provocatively. It may just be that she doesn't have a lot of clothes. Because I was thinking about that with Doreen the other day.
I imagine that probably is one of the easier things to spot.
Yeah.
Now,
but I would say on the street right away, I notice if a girl doesn't make eye contact with me, like she said, and she's very submissive, I know right away, that she's being trafficked and that there's something wrong, either domestic violence or that she's being trafficked.
So the big question is, now you've gotten them to come to you, what do you do to help them break out of this vicious cycle?
I think part of it starts with that relationship factor, like I was talking about, where you've got to be able to establish that you're trustworthy as much as you can. Some of that, Sacramento is very, very blessed to have Dignity Health and their response team when it comes to human trafficking. So right away you can have medical care, you could have psychological care, because for all of these girls it's a very real concern. Getting them safe and secure and comfortable, making sure they have a change of clothes, making sure that they have toiletries. One of the best parts about the purses that Blue Heart hands out is the fact that you're giving them dignity again, because for some of them, the best thing we could do is to say, hey, you matter as a human being, and what do you need? She may have needs that we couldn't even think about. I can think about one girl who needed glasses because her trafficker had broken her glasses, so she couldn't see any forms that I was trying to hand her. And it took a lot of bravery for her to say, I need glasses.
Wow, that's amazing. So it's Human Trafficking Month. How are we using this month what are we doing to bring awareness to this problem?
So every month in January we have our big gala that we do. It's this coming weekend for sex trafficking. But we just raise awareness, and we talk to people about what sex trafficking actually really looks like, and we just get people involved in ways they can around the community or on the street or in our housing program. So it's just a way for us to raise awareness, make more people aware. I feel whenever this month comes, I always feel like women are always saying, I didn't know my daughter was talking to a trafficker. Or, a lady says, hey, my friend's daughter is being sold and she didn't even know she was being sold. Or another lady says, hey, do you know if my daughter's being sold? I said, well, send me a picture. And then I found her being sold online. So there's just different ways that we help raise awareness and just let people know that this is real and it's happening right in her backyard. And 80% of teens are being targeted every day through social media for sex trafficking.
Wow, unreal. So, Gala, there may or may not be just a few seats left, but if people want to help out the organization and can't necessarily make this weekend's event, what can they do?
They can email us at info@blueheartinternational.org. And if they're yoga teachers, cooking instructors, some way they want to get involved with the girls, or if they want to go on the street with us or have a big, huge purse party, because we give away used purses on the street, just kind of a gift for them to gain that trust. I mean, we would love that as well.
All right. Very good. Missy McCall, Liz Williamson, Blue Heart International. Thanks so much for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.